everyone. It has been quite some time since I made the last video, and we have quite a bit of catching up to do. Funny enough, I tried using my GoPro underwater because they said it was waterproof. Turns out mine wasn't, so I had to ship it in for a replacement, and it took some time, but we are back and there's lots to show you in the garden. We're gonna give you a full garden tour and also go over our plans for the fall. Let's get to it. The garden has been looking absolutely divine. We definitely reached a peak in mid-July. And things are still in full flush, winding down a little bit. We've been getting some incredible and abundant harvests. And I'm just so grateful to be living this life. And with everything we've learned, everything I've learned along the way, it's time that we start preparing for fall. So let's just go through bed by bed and give y'all a rundown on what's going on. We'll start all the way over here and just make our way through. But first of all, the perennial garden is flourishing. What I love so much about flowers is how you get different peaks throughout the season. Like beginning of summer, you get this enormous wave of certain flowers. Midsummer, you get the wave of lilies, and towards the end of summer, you get the wave of hibiscus. And Dominic has done an incredible job of placing these plants throughout the garden, so you get all these different like peaks of interest in different areas throughout the season. And I've learned so much about perennial garden just from watching our own garden throughout the season. It's really inspiring to see. And Dominic has lived in a much more confined area most of his life. He's never had this much space to really do what he wants. So to really see him live out his childhood dreams and let out all of that creative energy in our gardens is really beautiful to see. Really beautiful. So back to it. Over here we have our strawberry patch. Sadly enough, a few of our strawberries actually got a fungus and died off, so I just pulled them straight out of the bed. There are a few still lingering on, but I've definitely have envisioned having this become much more of an herb bed. We have some apple mint here, which is a nice little fuzzy mint, super fragrant, but it's starting to take over. We also have some rosemary, some more rosemary, and some clary sage. I'm just gonna let this become a full-on herb garden or an herb bed because I have some things in the works right now, and herbs play a really big part in it. So the more we have of them, the better. And for next year, for the strawberries, I definitely want to build a raised platform of sorts so that the strawberries can actually hang. Because looking at the fruit, looking at strawberries and how they develop, they have these little viney wisps of strawberries, and I think they would do a lot better hanging and producing fruit that way than just laying in the ground, becoming susceptible to fungus and whatnot. I feel like that's what really affected the strawberries this time around. But first year, lesson learned. Still got a lot of wonderful strawberries from it, and it's still producing some. But next year for sure, a raised platform. Now over here, we had all of our onions, and I actually went through and harvested the onions about a few days ago. I'd say like 3 days ago. And now I probably want to plant onions in here again for the fall, much smaller onions. We have an Asian variety that is like in between a green onion and a white onion in size. So I think it would do really well here. This peach tree is just like exploding exploding with growth. And I'm actually not sure if I want to continue having this tree in here. It's getting real big. We did not expect it to get this big, this fast. But when it goes dormant, we are actually going to start training the peach tree so that it can grow the way it's meant to. Peach trees actually grow best if they grow in a bowl. So when it goes dormant, we're actually going to cut this center off here so that it just completely grows outward. Because usually what happens is it gets a huge bush in the center and it blocks a lot of light from these outer leaves here. And it actually prohibits some of its growth for its fruit because not all of the leaves are getting light. But we shall see what happens. She might stay, she might go somewhere else. Oh my goodness, guys, the tomatoes are popping. I'm so excited for the tomatoes. I feel like we got kind of a late start with our tomatoes. They were in the ground for a really long time, but it's just up until recently that they've really started to take off. And I think part of the reason was they weren't getting the right nutrients that they needed to grow abundantly. I've been really researching and seeing what tomatoes need to really flourish. And what we were experiencing a lot of is, for example, our Cherokee Purple, they were getting a bunch of flowers, but none of them were producing fruit. And whatever was producing fruit was really stagnated, taking a super long time to actually like ripen. So I went into overdrive and I started giving them a lot more nitrogen and potassium-rich fertilizers. I made a fertilizer out of bananas, some rotten bananas. Let them ferment in a jar for like 3 days, blended it up, and put it along and fed it to the tomatoes. I also put coffee grounds because they like their acidity as well. Every morning when I get my cup of coffee, I just take the coffee grounds and sprinkle them on the base of the tomatoes because they do really appreciate that acidic boost. I've also been making a mixture of bone meal and powdered milk and feeding that to them because they love their calcium as well. And what else have I been doing? Oh, we have comfrey, and I've actually been cutting the leaves and placing them on the base of the bed around the stems to act sort of as a slow release fertilizer, because comfrey is very famous for having so many nutrients in its leaves. So as you can see, these have dried up a little bit already, so it might be time to place some more. But it's a really cool way to add a very natural slow release fertilizer. And since doing all that, we've seen some incredible progress, especially with our Cherokee Purples. I have been wanting fruits from these so bad, and they're finally starting to produce in such abundance. And I'm sure that every time I go through, I just flutter the flowers to help them pollinate. And yeah, we're getting so many now. Oh, so excited. Let's see, here we have, and something else is like, I didn't realize the difference between determinate and indeterminate tomatoes. So we have a mix of tomatoes here that just keep on growing and some that have just kind of like stayed in place. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think determinate are the ones that get to a certain height, stop growing, and then produce their flush of fruit. And then indeterminate are the ones that just keep on going, keep on growing, and put out fruit throughout the season. And Cherokee Purple is definitely an indeterminate because she is just growing wild. I'm like staking her up wherever I can. So definitely next time I'm gonna build something, a much longer trellis, and really understand the difference between determinate and indeterminate to be able to place them more accordingly for that. But it's been fun, like winding them through and giving them their own way to stake. It's kind of an art form almost. It feels like an art installation for the plants, for the tomatoes. But we're getting lots of fruit now, and I'm so excited. Now we gotta get our canning game up. Wow, look at how beautiful. Tomatoes are such beautiful plants. Oh, here we go, some more Cherokee purples. A few days ago, I actually went to a friend's house to help them in their canning process because they got over 10 pounds of tomatoes, and it was so inspiring to see their process and how they can, and it was really, really fun to learn in such a fun way like that. Oh yeah, we have some of our peppers doing really nice. Here we have some poblano. Just about ready for picking. Yes. Let's see, do we have any of our pimientos? Oh, we have one right here. Beautiful. I'm waiting for them to get red before plucking them. Hopefully they get to that point, but they're getting so tall. Wow. Absolutely gorgeous. Really quick while we are over here, I want to show you guys this beautiful hibiscus. It's called the Lord Baltimore hibiscus. And look at her. Wow. So vibrant, so red, absolutely gorgeous. Wow. This is one of Dominic's favorite hibiscus. And I actually think it's one of, if not one of them, the largest hibiscus. This is our first year growing it, so it's not too big just yet, but it gets massive, 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 like quite a few feet tall. So we're excited to see how she performs next year, but she is absolutely stunning. Man, the perennial garden is just popping. And we're really, or at least I am, I feel like I'm much more of the seed connoisseur. Very looking forward to collecting seeds. Oh my goodness, here we have our Russian sage. Oh my God, smells divine. Another beautiful herb to dry and use throughout. Oh, here we have these beautiful precious lilies. And I'm not Dominic, so I'm not really good on the names. He's kind of like an encyclopedia of plants. Oh, I know this one. Here we have our red sunflower, or our Mexican sunflowers. Love these too. So gorgeous. And here, this is actually, I think it's called an elephant grass. And it's only the first year, but they say this is supposed to get 14 feet tall. And that's tall. So now let's venture into our melon beds. Oh, we got some runaway chickens. Here we have some Royal Golden. Oh my gosh, one of our most beautiful melons. This is the biggest one I think we've gotten so far. We had one before, but it actually fell off the stem because it got too heavy. But this one's really producing. I like that it's actually producing in the bed, so I know it'll grow well. A good telling sign if it's ready to pluck is if you twist it from the stem. And if it twists off and snaps easily, then it's definitely time. If it gives you some resistance, leave it on the stem for a little longer. Hopefully it produces some more fruit. This is just kind of taken over the corner. And I've noticed that some of the leaves have been dying off. I feel like it might be fungal related or mildew. Not sure, but it's a pretty interesting balance of like fresh lushness and then other parts that are dying off. And over here, let's see if we have some here. Here on this side we have our bitter melon, and I love how everything's really grown in to build this beautiful fence of foliage. Let's see, I think it's on the other side. Oh, we have one producing here. This is a Taiwan bitter melon. And they're such beautiful fruits, y'all. This looks like a dragon egg. Now, given the name bitter melon, I mean, I wasn't surprised by the taste, but goddamn, it was intense. It kind of tastes like, Have you ever like bitten into like a pill or aspirin and really get that bitter medicinal taste in your mouth? That's definitely what this tastes like. So definitely figuring out the best ways to cook it to really reduce that flavor, because I mean, it's hard to eat, but it has so many beautiful health properties that I really want to figure it out. They say black bean is a really good neutralizer, but definitely to cook, you want to slice it into very, very thin pieces to make sure that whatever you do cook has the potential to cook down and reduce that flavor. There's also a green one. Oh, let's see if I can get it through here. Oh, wow. It's kind of stuck over there, but another really beautiful fruit. I'll leave you on the other side. Oh, or here's another one. Here we have one of our melons in a little hammock that I've made out of pantyhose. Just like 99-cent pantyhose, cut them and gave them a little hammock to sit in so that they get the support they need to really grow. Nice. We have some more peppers growing in. Our yellow peppers are finally turning yellow. Super excited about that. We've actually been able to pluck some and use them in the garden or in the kitchen. Now look at this one, turning a nice red. Such abundance. Now we have Royal Golden watermelons and Otome watermelons, which I believe is this one. And that one might actually be ready soon. They're not supposed to get that big, the Otome. So we might actually pluck one of those and see what's inside. Let's see if she's ready here. So I'll grab her, give her a nice twist. She ain't coming up, so I think she actually needs a little more time. We're gonna leave her. She is a beauty. I plucked one the other day and I was actually gonna show y'all, but my housemates got to it first and just kind of devoured it. So next time we get one, I'll be sure to show you. Oh, some more beautiful peppers. These will be really great for the canning process too. I think a tomato and pepper sauce would be delicious. Oh man, and here we have our beautiful zucchini rampicante. It's been quite a challenge with her. She had this beautiful flush in the beginning of the summer, but then we really started having issues with squash beetle. They just popped up left and right, and it's been kind of hard navigating getting them off of there. I've just been spraying them, putting neem oil all over the place, but it's been raining, so having to reapply, it's just been kind of a mess. But here are some of them actually, you can see them. They've been laying their eggs, so these are like teenager squash beetles, but just plucking them off. They just come up left and right. Oh, we have some female flowers. Let's see if we can pollinate. Any male flowers? Oh, there's one up there. So I went ahead and plucked that flower. What I'm gonna do is use this Q-tip to collect some of the pollen that's in there. Whatever I get, no matter how much or little, I'm gonna try and use it to pollinate our females. Doesn't seem to be much in there. Let's see. There's a little bee in there, and don't mean to disturb y'all, but I want to make sure I get some zucchini. You can see the female receptors. Just gently tap her without disturbing our bee. There you go. So I really hope that those pollinate. Given we have been letting the zucchini rampicante that we've gotten grow to about like 2 to 2.5 feet. And when they get that big, they can actually store for a very long time. So we'll see what we do with all that zucchini. And in terms of our fall plans for this whole bed, melons and peppers and such, they're really heavy feeders. So I think when it's time to replace all of this, I'm actually going to use some cover crop to put into this bed, let it grow out, cut it back, or let it die off as winter hits and have it just lay as a green mulch, so that it's prepared to do something for the spring season. Given everything that we've been doing and just the abundance of work, it'd be nice to just lay some cover crop there and let it do its own thing and really give ourselves a break, because it's been a lot of work, y'all. So I'm actually gonna lay cover crop in quite a few beds. For the vegetables that we planted that are really heavy feeders, like melons, potatoes, brassicas or cabbages, broccolis, and kales, I'm gonna lay a nitrogen fixing cover crop. So I'm gonna do like peas and oats. Peas really help bring nitrogen into the soil, and the oats actually absorb a lot of that nitrogen. So when they die off, they just release it all back into the soil. So it acts as a really nice green mulch. So I think that's what we're gonna do for our cover crop. So now I'll bring you into our sorrel and Malabar spinach bed. It is growing so abundantly, and it's quite, I don't know if you've had sorrel, but sorrel's quite an intense flavor. It has a really strong citrusy lemon lime flavor, which I love, but really you have to use just a little bit in your cooking to get that flavor. So it's been kind of hard figuring out how to use it in a way that'll go a long way in the kitchen. So I've really just been snacking on it. It's a delicious little treat to eat throughout the garden. And then we have our Malabar spinach, which is actually living out my fantasy. When I found out that Malabar spinach was a viner, I hadn't realized it when I planted it. So I laid out this training wire, and I thought it would like fill in the borders really nicely of this bed and give a really nice effect. And it's actually been following the training wire so well. So it's really cool to see it taking effect. And I have 2 layers of it. And Malabar spinach grows quite prolifically, so I'm sure it'll fill in no time. Let's fill in the other side here. And it's such a pretty plant. I love the burgundy vine with the green leaves. And if you haven't had Malabar spinach, it's a really nutrient-rich leafy green to have in the garden. It has a lot of vitamin A, vitamin C, has a little bit of a slimy consistency, similar to like okra, but super, super delicious. Speaking of okra, our okra is taking off. It has really exploded with growth. And now we're finding ourselves picking like 2 to 3 okra per plant every day because they grow so fast. And they have such beautiful flowers. And I actually didn't realize this, but okra is related to hibiscus, which makes total sense. Such a gorgeous plant. And I'm excited to can some okra as well. So far we've just been sauteing it, throwing it in some pasta, and deep frying it too for a nice snack throughout the day. Now in this bed, we had our potatoes growing as well. And like I said, potatoes are a very heavy feeder. So when it's time to switch out this bed, for the most part, we're gonna do some oats and some peas in here to help fix nitrogen in the soil. Now I did plant some beans alongside the trellis here, but they haven't really taken off. And I'm not sure why that is. It might be too intense here for the beans, but I thought they liked the heat. Not sure. I have fertilized them, but it's okay. I'm not stressed about it. We have a lot of beans growing elsewhere that are doing quite well. Here we have our scarlet kale, which I think the heat is just really taking its toll on it. It likes it a little cooler. They can survive the heat, but their growth will definitely stop for a little bit. So over here, if you remember, we had our Brussels sprouts and our cauliflower. And the cauliflower did so great through the spring, but the Brussels sprouts really suffered over the summertime because of cabbage worm. So I think over fall, we're definitely gonna try it again. Because, oh, I think you just saw that little white butterfly. That's what lays the cabbage worm. And it is a pollinator in the garden, so I don't really mind having it. But I think if we're gonna try growing brassicas over the summertime, we're definitely gonna tent them. Or just grow them in the spring or fall when that butterfly is not around, because they're only out during the summertime. So for this bed, I'm still debating. I may plant Brussels sprouts again to try it, or because we've already had cauliflower in here, I might do cover crop in this bed as well, just to help bring that nutrient back into the soil. Over here, we had our microgreens that are no longer microgreens. I'm actually about to prep this bed. So along with the Swiss chard, I think I'm just gonna cut it all down, let it lay there to bring that nutrient into the soil, and then just cover it with a layer of compost and then plant straight into it. I might do carrots and radishes in here, something that roots into the soil and is also a light feeder, just so that next season we can plant straight into it again. And next time with our Swiss chard, definitely not plant so much of it. It would definitely do a lot better if we did less, a little more spaced out, so we didn't have so much of it competing for nutrients, and in a shadier area, because I don't think it likes the full sun. I know Swiss chard can get really big, and I feel like it never got to that point just because there's so much of it in direct sunlight. Now we have this bed as well. We had a lot of cabbage in here, so because it was a heavy feeder, mostly on that side, and in the center, I think I'm going to do cover crop here as well to bring some nutrient back into the soil. I tried planting soybeans in here, pardon me, but I don't know why they didn't come up. It was a little strange. I'll have to dig them up and see what happened. Now we're on to our bean and corn bed. The beans are growing super well. We planted a really lovely little patch of burgundy bush bean, and they're starting to produce. Oh, this one actually I think dried out. Oops. Man, there's been so much going on. It's been kind of hard to keep track of everything. We also have this really pretty little Italian bean here. Oh my god, it's gorgeous. Almost ready to pluck, I think. Wow. Oh my gosh. And over here, I was really happy to see the symbiotic relationship between beans and corn take effect. We have this beautiful black maize, black corn, which is an heirloom, and the Native Americans have been using it for a very long time. It's a pure black corn that is edible. So I'm really excited because it tasseled for a while there, but it only recently started to produce silks. So because we have it in very narrow rows, I've been sure to like help it pollinate by cutting off some of the tassels and just sprinkling them over the silks. And here we have our beans that have been growing up along the corn, which is super cool to see, because if you don't know, beans help bring nitrogen back into the soil. So having them next to the corn really helps the corn get some more nutrients, and it also helps the beans grow up vertically, which they prefer. Super pretty. And over here we had our peaches and cream and our japonica. But they produced everything that they were going to for this season, so I actually cut them out. And what we're actually doing, we're trying something here. Rather than pulling out the stem, the root and the stalk completely. What I've been doing actually is getting to the base of the corn and actually cutting it and leaving the root system in there to decompose and give nutrients to the soil. So with that, I'll put a layer of compost over and just keep planting directly in. It's a really nice no-dig method because I don't like disrupting the natural order of things that's been going on in there. If you follow Deanna Cat on Instagram, this is how she gardens in her garden, and it really inspired me to really live out that no-dig lifestyle because I don't want to disrupt anything. And it makes sense because it keeps giving nutrient back into the soil as it decomposes. It like releases a lot of its nutrients. And over here, ooh, we have this beautiful patch of glass gem corn, which is a rainbow corn that can be used for popcorn, or it's ornamental if you let it dry out. And it started producing a lot of silks. And because it's in a nice big clump here, I'm not worried that it's going to pollinate. I've seen a lot of little bees buzzing around too, shaking things up. Very excited to see what it produces. Now over here, this is where we were, you could see it's kind of like cut out here. This is where we were amending our soil. So we actually planted a round of cover crops, mustard, buckwheat, there was something else in there, I can't quite remember. But for this round, we were planting cover crop that would help break up the soil and also kill any soil-borne diseases. So once that reached maturity, when it started to flower, we cut it back and we just let everything lay into the soil to release its nutrients back into the soil. And when it's time to add the cover crop to our beds over here, we're gonna lay a layer of compost and plant some nitrogen fixing cover crop like clover, peas and oats as well. And then we'll have that die off as winter hits and have it be a nice layer of green mulch. So hopefully next year we'll plant straight into the soil here. It'll be a really nice addition to the garden because it's huge. And I think it'll be very ideal for plants that need a lot more room, like potatoes, corn, and maybe even tomatoes. We'll see. Over here we have our comfrey patch. I've been letting the chickens free range quite a bit, and they've really made a home of this area over here. I wouldn't be surprised when they start laying to find eggs over here. And I'm not too worried about them messing up the comfrey. It's a pretty sturdy plant and it grows abundantly. It actually is flowering and starting to seed, so I wouldn't be surprised if the comfrey just kept growing along the edges here, which I really wouldn't mind. The more comfrey we have for the garden, the better. It's also one of those herbs that, if broken down and diluted properly, can be used for topical treatment to relieve aches and pains. Really great for the garden as well. There's Mo. They just have so many nutrients because comfrey actually grows a very, very deep root system. So it gets really deep down in there and pulls a lot of those ancient nutrients back up to use for the garden. And it's been so nice to have the chickens free range. I really love having them live this freer way of life than contained. Hi babies. Hi sweetheart. Oh, hello. Yeah, I love these chickens. They're so sweet. Hi sweetheart. Oh, they rarely let me pet them though. It's okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. Isn't that right, Mo? That's one beautiful rooster, y'all. All right. Now over here we have our sweet potatoes, which have just exploded. I'm not actually sure how to tell when sweet potatoes are done, but it just keeps on growing. And it's such a beautiful plant. Absolutely gorgeous. Now we do practice very organic ways of gardening here, so I really don't like spraying pesticides If anything, just diatomaceous earth and neem oil, but never anything chemical based. So because of that, it has gotten quite a bit chewed up, but I really do not mind. It's still growing very prolifically. And it's a root vegetable, so I don't necessarily think it would affect it that much. Lots of marigolds too, just sprinkled throughout the garden. Another really beautiful plant to dry and use for quite a few things. Here we have our eggplant tent, producing lots of beautiful eggplant. Not sure if you can see it there. But if you've been following our journey, you know that we've had quite a few issues with flea beetles, and ever since tenting them, the eggplants have just been so much happier, and I'm so proud that we got eggplant this season. God bless. Over here we have our quinoa, and I'm not necessarily sure if it grew as big as it was supposed to. Never grew it before, but the buds on it are starting to color up, so I think it might be time to harvest it soon. But excited to see what that turns into. Very experimental with this crop here. I think when it's time to switch out this bed, I think I'm gonna do kale in this bed actually. I think it would look really pretty in this edge here. It would fill in really nicely. We shall see. Now, what I plan on doing with some of the beds, we did plant quite a few heavy feeders. So within those beds, I do want to try getting one more season out of them. So like I said with the corn, I'm just gonna cut the stalks and lay a layer of compost over, and then plant seedlings in those beds so that they have, I'd say, an extra layer underneath to pull nutrients from. And then we'll let it fallow for a season so that it can regain its strength. Because I think one of the most important things in gardens that isn't talked about much is soil health, and making sure that you're not completely depleting your soil so that you can continue to grow. Just keep growing and make sure that there's a healthy and balanced ecosystem within your soil, and respecting that, not taking complete advantage of your garden and just sucking it of all of its resources. It's really important to have a healthy relationship with your garden and its soil. I want to show you how our compost is doing. So we have our 3-bin compost system. Here are all the fresh scraps, a nice mix of brown and green material. And then after about a month and a half, we flip it so that it can continue to decompose. It brings oxygen back in and just reactivates the microorganisms so that it can continue to break down. Then after a month in here, we flip it one more time, and it goes into the grand finale compost bin. And here we let it sit for a month, and this should be ready to use within the garden. So when I'm redoing the beds, we'll be using this compost to sprinkle over top to bring nutrients back into that soil and bring nutrients back into the beds over there. Over here we have our sunflower patch, and we've been getting some beautiful sunflowers, which I love. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to collect seed. Oh my gosh, look at this one. Probably my favorite one that we've grown. This is a red lemon variety. Oh, whoa, this wind is crazy, y'all. I feel a storm brewing, which I would not mind at all. Please water my garden for free. And rainwater really is the best water for the garden. Look at this one. I love the pastel yellow with the little striations of burgundy. Oh, look at this one here. Beautiful colors. I think this one's called Velvet Queen, and I can see why. And we have this giant sunflower raining overhead. Wow, I think when this starts drying off, collect some seeds, but it would be very nice to just lay it in the coop for the girls and have them eat some fresh organic sunflowers. I've been experimenting with them really. and laying out just random things that die we pluck out throughout the garden to see if they enjoy playing with it. I've seen them rustling with the corn stalks. Not too much. Oh, here's the gang. Hey y'all. Y'all, I am super excited for the fall. I feel like it'll really give us a chance to grow what we grew in the spring, but kind of reversed. Rather than starting cool and then getting hot, which some of the brassicas didn't like, we're gonna start hot and then get cool, which I think a lot of the brassicas will love because they're usually a much cooler growing crop. So I'm really hoping for some massive cabbage, some beautiful cauliflower, and some massive broccoli. But we shall see. I actually started planting a lot of seeds and I wanted to show you what we had going on there. So up here, I actually have everything that I'm planning to plant for the fall. I'm gonna get some really big wooden half barrels to plant our asparagus in there because it's time to get some asparagus rolling. I feel like they would do well over winter as well. Ooh, it's windy. And y'all, it is so crazy to see how quickly these seeds have sprouted. I think it's because we're in that midsummer heat and they are getting that warmth that they really need to germinate properly. But here we have some blue curled Scotch kale, some 1,000-head kale, which is massive. Oh my gosh, this guy had a leaf that it grew like his waist up to his head. That's how big the leaf was. Here we have some dazzling blue kale. I'm actually trying pumpkin. It's a little late in the season, but I think it's worth a try for a nice fall harvest. Have some rosemary back here. We have cauliflower, some calendula to put in the herb garden. I think there's still time to have some calendula grow well in the garden. Some purple cauliflower, Waltham broccoli, red cabbage, green cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and some Chinese broccoli back there as well. And it's crazy to see how quick the seeds have sprouted up. So our next project over the next few weeks is definitely going to be getting our beds ready and have those seeds planted, hopefully within the next 2 weeks. There are a lot of things that I'm just gonna direct to sow into the ground, like beets and carrots and turnips, things that don't necessarily do well in pots to begin with. But until then, please comment below and let me know what you're planning for fall. And if you have any questions on what we got going on here in the garden, I'm so happy to answer them. And I just want to spark a conversation with you all. So until next time, I will leave you all. Please comment, like, and share this video and keep spreading the love for gardening. Take care.